Hello there everyone and welcome back. It looks like my rematches are going to continue, at least as far as yesterday was, for I'm going to have some more matches with Voidweaver, and we're having ourselves a match with the Space Marine opponent I had up against last time. Although they're going to be utilizing a completely different fleet this time. They still have a battle barge with the lances, but they're going to complement it. I believe is what they're going to be doing is adding 3 strike cruisers. I think all these are the Mark 1 variant with the fighter bays, so there's going to be a lot of boarding parties. There's going to be a lot of strike cruisers, or not, Stormhawks I think is the fighters was called, never mind. Either way, I was kind of expecting, well, I don't know what I was honestly expecting. I just know that the Mark 1 strike cruisers are a lot more expensive than all the other cruisers, so my opponent's only going to have the convenience of a single frigate, and even though I've been experimenting with the Auger Disruptor, and to be frank, been using it poorly, as kind of demonstrated with how I was explaining it, I am choosing not to utilize it, at least this time around. And it's probably a good thing too, because in all seriousness, the frigates is like the easiest way to kind of counteract, I don't know why I'm fumbling all my words today, but at least denying the potential the Auger Disruptor has, just because of its scanner pulse alone. Let's not even talk about the additional sensor range that they have as well, if they choose to get that upgrade. And either way, the scanner pulse, solid running, there's all sorts of different reasons. In fact, since they can kind of reveal me and I have no way to know how close the frigates are, unless my opponent decides to reveal them just by using their boosters or not. Let's try and get my head in the game, as the strike cruisers have been revealed as the Mark 1, so I'm just going to hide myself in the asteroid belt, hide myself in the gas cloud. At least make sure they're not pursuing my cruisers to kind of make things awkward for me, due to the battle barge potentially having disruption overcharge still. I'm thankful I don't have to worry about the strike cruisers having lances, or at least a heavy amount of weaponry to kind of chip down my hull field. Since that is a matchup I have not been able to try out yet, is the 6 strike cruiser fleet. Try as I might. The closest we really got was that 5 strike cruiser fleet with a couple of frigates. And I honestly can't remember if that fleet had disruption overcharge even. I'm going to guess maybe not, since they weren't really the lance type variant. But I am still intrigued to face off and see how that matchup feels. Since it was, after all, the most popular fleet, or so I thought anyway, but I'm left wanting, left uncertain about where they went. But I'm going to grab these points again, just deny the fighters. Simple process, just gotta be mindful that a light cruiser does not get inconveniently spotted, just at random. Since I'm completely oblivious if there are any frigates, to be fair, but there is only the single one that I know of. And that's going to be revealed at some point. And it's probably the only thing that's going to randomly spot my light cruiser as well. Since I have no idea where it's at. And I'm just going to try and present myself with an opportunity to chip these things down. And I wonder if my opponent realizes or does notice if they're being revealed or not. Since now you have a convenient way to know if you're revealed. As opposed to before, when they did not have that quality of life change that at least has that visual representation if you're spotted or not. I think there was literally no way you could tell unless you selected the ship, but you would have to deliberately look down at the bottom left here near all the command abilities. Either way, light cruisers trying to get some free damage in, but as you can see, it's just barely enough to get through his shields and not much else. So it's not very impressive damage, needless to say, especially with it about to fly in a gas cloud. And the frigate has been revealed, and inconveniently, it has spotted my light cruiser. I have been a little bit lazy, since I let the hull field die down. This is kind of the example of how I should be prepared for the possibility of a frigate, since if that suffered any kind of critical hits, especially on the generators, that could be all sorts of screwed. Or hell, even on the deck could be a big liability too. Even if it is marked right now, it could at least conceal itself after another 30 seconds. Otherwise, I fall back. It's the same situation as before. I have 3 objectives, so there's no real reason for me to poke on out. I just gotta find the most promising position for me. And I'm just realizing now, the reason my light cruiser's not hitting is because that frigate actually had the additional sensor range, I think. And that was buffed to include a 45-second mark debuff on a target if they got within the 4,000 range. So that's why my light cruiser is just now being silent or being concealed. I was wondering about that and it didn't dawn on me until this very moment if I were to be serious. Either way, I'm getting ready to do more damage there. I am set to brace for impact at the moment, just because again, we're dealing with a lot of fighters. Although, yeah, I was hoping maybe I could switch to lock on at this point to maximize my damage potential. But I get myself stuck a little bit. But on the plus side, this is where I get the confirmation there's no disruption overcharge, which helps a lot with me at least weathering the storm, even if I am trapped in a stasis bomb right now. I still have my Wraith Bone shift, I still have my Falls maneuver, it's just the boring damage I gotta be very damn mindful of, which is about to hit me in a moment. That and of course the Honored Chapter, which just hit us as well. And with 14 boring results on the Phoenix, you know that thing's in a world of trouble. I'm trying to do the math quickly in my head, but I don't think they can kill the Phoenix just with those alone. I'm hoping maybe. Since I think I neglect using my call to arms. But those torpedo hits were damn nice, weren't they? And let's see. Did I use my Wraith Bone shift? It was great out there. Okay, they are available, never mind. Because I was looking at it as it was the battle barge was charging, it was grayed out, so I was worried maybe my engines were destroyed. Either way, good god. That little bit of boring damage certainly is doing work. And a lot of the reason why I need to try and use cold arms as often as possible. Preferably without it getting me killed. Which is going to be a bit of the hard part. And I'm trying not so much to fight the battle barge, but more trying to kill off the strike cruisers with how crippled they are right now. And alas, my Phoenix is threatening to get stuck in this stasis bomb. It doesn't quite have the Wraith Bone shift. And with no generators, it's in for a lot of trouble, but my priority is not the battle barge. You're going to see it when the battle barge chooses to chase after my two cruisers that still have a good crew on them. I'm going to try and fly directly away from them as I make desperate attempts to keep my ships alive or keep the crew going on them. And then just clean up, but torpedoes are going to add to this insult a little bit, and good god is the first salvo worth it. Got rid of like a third of its health, a quarter of its health immediately there, so I can't feel bad about that, but I don't think we got any critical hits. Well, temporary damage on maybe a lance or two, but not much to really write home about. But thankfully, the battle barge is neglecting its strike cruisers, which gives me a good opportunity. It's a little bit awkward though, it goes without saying, due to the fact that my ships are kind of crewless right now, and this one cruiser is kind of a floating derelict. It's kind of literally flying away on me. I don't know if that's a weird glitch or an actual mechanic in this game or not, since it seems a little inconsistent. But still, more torpedo hits, not as impressive as it was before, but still good chunks of damage. And again, this is kind of a little bit of abusing the supercharged, not the supercharged void shield, but the spear crystal lenses. It's really helpful in denying these shields from getting back up. And that's a lot of the reasons why I feel like, well, I don't know what I'm trying to say, in all honesty. It feels like, with how close I am getting to Legend, and the self-destruct on this ship here, keep that in mind, it did detonate that ship, but with how close I am getting to Legendary, I feel like it is off the heels of, or off the backs rather, of the Spear Crystal lenses, kind of allowing me to get that victory, especially against all those ships that are so battleship-centric as well. It would kind of force me to play a lot more passive and a lot more objective-based, perhaps, and not nearly as much opportunity to at least get aggressive, at least against the flagship itself with the supercharged forward shield. But with that said, with this pretty much in my bag now, with 3 objectives, and only the battle barge ran away from me, I'm just going to hide myself in the gas clouds. As awkward as a process that is, and my opponent concedes before I get to that point. So, that was a bit fumbling with my words. I don't know what's off with me at the moment, but either way, I really do hope the Spirit Crystal lenses does get changed, for it does make a lot of these fleets have a hard time against the Asuryani just because Supercharged Void Shield gets hard countered by it. Alright, so now we're going to have ourselves another match with Voidweaver, and to be honest, I am kind of thankful for these type of mirror matches, for it helps me to learn what I can get away with this fleet. Since I do hearken enough, I'm pretty certain I hearken enough how I feel like the underdog just because of the nature of the pulsars, and just how restrictive it can be as well, at least when you compare to the las cannons and their 270 degree arc if you have the lock-on stance available. It makes it a little problematic, and with the hull field being a bit of a nuisance, and hell, I even tested it a little bit, at least vaguely, with the 20-second recharge it is entirely possible, even with the amount of damage I could potentially do with my entire fleet, the hull field will charge back up fully before my hull field or my pulsars get to fire again. So if I realistically want to try and win with the pulsars alone, I'm going to have to somehow stagger them and somehow have them hit the same target, which makes this process even more intimidating for me, I'm not going to lie. In all honesty, maybe I'm overestimating the las cannons and the firepower that Voidweaver has, since I do technically still have the better win ratio, the win record against Voidweaver so far, if not Asuryani in general, since I have played, what, one or two other Asuryani type of fleets. But still, I am just not certain. I'm just going with the cautious route just to be safe, since, after all, there's always a possibility if the match were to somehow drag out, I could get the advantage through the point objective as well, since it feels like Voidweaver doesn't care as much about the objective, and it makes sense, I suppose, with how quick these matches have gone, but hell, I don't see any reason not to grab them, especially if I'm going to be trying to slowly chip down my opponent slow and steady, especially with the light cruiser. I like to feel like it is doing its job, even though damage-wise it's kind of lackluster on its own, try as I might. But it is there nonetheless, and it actually did, what is it? It did allow me to actually win one or two of those matches against Voidweaver, so despite its damage being kind of lackluster, just because of the pulsars more or less, it still has its place, it still has its value, oddly enough, for what would seem like such an unappealing ship, because after all, it has a single charge of torpedoes after all. The lack of critical hit resistance making it really easy to kill its generator, never mind the limited charges it has on boarding as well. It's hard to appreciate, at least in comparison to Aurora, which is kind of like almost a direct comparison to a vague extent. It's just how it should be played, with Corsairs having Shroud and the Asuryani having to be out in the open is the big difference. Either way, no surprise on how this is playing out. Voidweaver is just trying to cover all the gas clouds to keep me from being hit, and I'm just going to try and shoot them down, but Voidweaver is getting really aggressive here right now. I think Voidweaver even just boost on in, which could have been an amazing opportunity for me to use my Disruption Bomb, since I'm going to have to look hard into if I'm using Disruption Bomb poorly or not, if I were to be serious. Because that's an amazing window to do damage, and hell, I'm capitalizing on it right now, if not vaguely. It's just not consistent accuracy, it goes without saying. Either way, good damage on the offset, more damage than what I'm taking currently, and did you see that? Voidweaver is using Auger Disruptor. I don't know if I should be flattered or if there was another inspiration for this, but it is not a good decision because of what I said before in my last match with the Space Marines. I have a light cruiser to reveal the ships, and this is going to be brutal as we kind of already expected, and with the Wraithbone shift, I'm gonna drop them in a Maelstrom of my own. And hell, I think we're taking double Maelstrom, or at least my cruiser is, which may be a terrible mistake. It is definitely brutal, but it's looking like I might have the health advantage at the moment, but I am missing out on my hull field on the Phoenix. And I don't think I really got any torpedo hits as well, which is probably where it could cost me a little bit, because now suddenly, despite the hit points being in my advantage, now I'm a bit the underdog, especially with me flying this dang Maelstrom as well. So this could still be anybody's game there. I sadly don't have my fighters to help negate these bombers the best. And I switched over to my brace for impact. And while I could have took advantage of the 270-degree arc with the lock-on, the deck was destroyed either way. So I'm wondering, that probably was a good opportunity to use the Disruption Bomb, because keep in mind, I used Disruption Bomb before and this was a loss, keep that in mind. My ship mutinied and it broke as a result, or that was the end of the match. But Disruption Bomb there, at least it shows its value. Sure, it may seem lackluster in the previous matches with Voidweaver, but with how aggressive Voidweaver was this time, it shows that maybe there's some merit to it. Still, it was another loss, and I mismanaged that quite a bit. Okay, I wasn't expecting to have this many matches with Voidweaver, but hey, after those defeats, it definitely does feel good to try and rectify that, to correct this wrong that's been had. And this is going to be an interesting match, because it's not going to be, well, it's going to be a very drawn out type of match, interesting enough. How it's going to play out, I'm not going to say, but we're going to have a different type of mindset, I think, for Voidweaver than just trying to get at me aggressively. And with the layout that I currently have, conceal myself and trying to hide my fleet, and especially for the possibility of Auger Disruptor, is not likely to work here. At least that's my initial impression. It's going to be weird though, since Voidweaver does have the possibility of grabbing the 3 points on the right with how passively I've been playing. So I feel like if Voidweaver wanted to play that route, then this would be the opportunity to do it. I feel like anyway. But otherwise, it's a good learning experience. I am still happy for every single one of these matches, although it still feels like some silly little nuances that I messed up with is kind of costing me the victory, even with how close the last one is. And let's not even talk about that potentially abysmal failure where I kind of let my hull field die down. That was the most obvious reason I probably lost there. With how close every other match has been, I think that's a safe assumption at least. Either way, I am not going to use the Auger Disruptor, although I would love to experiment with it more, but in truth, it really is more of a meta pick. And what I mean by that is, you kind of have to know what you're coming up against. And if you are very confident your opponent's not going to have any frigates, or at the very least, a reliable means to get vision, then there could be some miraculous things you could possibly do with the Auger Disruptor. But every other match, 99% of the matches, that's probably going to be pointless. And with this awkward layout, the asteroid belt, I'm going to try to fly the asteroid belt and try and conceal my ships, since it's apparent that these fighters are actually coming towards my Phoenix right now. So I'm going to try and delay them and see what I could do about at least trying to avoid possible damage, although there is no real risk in all seriousness, is there? Hell, I even opened up with a brace for impact, since it seems unlikely I can at least keep the fighters away through vision at least. They are more than likely going to reveal me, as made apparent by the fact I have conceded to that fact here. And I'm going to have all four of my ships kind of group up and try and snipe these things down. Soften up their numbers as much as humanly possible at least. At least that's the idea, but again, there's 12 fighter squadrons and 12 bomber squadrons, but if I'm somehow able to get rid of the fighters effectively well, then at least the bombers can get picked off quickly, especially if I have my own fighters out in the middle of the fighting itself, when it eventually happens. But I'm Gonna conceal myself, gonna hide myself, take a little bit of asteroid damage as a result, so that can add up over time if I'm not careful. I'm just gonna Wraithbone shift out as soon as everything's hit in, just to minimize said damage. Since it's damage per second as opposed to how much time or how much I travel through the asteroid belt. And I mismanaged my light cruiser a little bit since I didn't quite get the free shots I wanted and I was paranoid I might get revealed. And with those fighters coming up there, it kind of justifies it, doesn't it? Voidweaver is paying close attention to what's going on here. But it's hounding it. This would immediately negate the Augur Disrupt that Voidweaver had before, just because I have vision of his fleet now because of this light cruiser. And Voidweaver would have almost no way to really see this coming ahead of time. Let alone it would be a complete waste of an Augur Disruptor with how far away I am anyway. It's not like Voidweaver could benefit from it in any way. But the reason this is going to be interesting, the reason this is going to be drawn out is Voidweaver is actually going to try and hunt down my light cruiser. This is something I really want to pay attention to so I can see what tactics Voidweaver is going to utilize and how I can improve on this Salt Run motion. Since what we're going to be seeing in the next few minutes is just that. The fighters are actually kind of trying to spot, to a limited extent, where I might go. And thankfully, my light cruiser is so much more faster than them. And once I realize that Voidweaver is going to commit to this, what you're going to see is I'm going to backdoor and steal all the points that he has taken while he hunts this thing down. And kind of to put a little bit of pressure on Voidweaver as well to kind of disengage from chasing down the light cruiser as well, as I am kind of getting close to the edge of the map right now, so it is a very real possibility I could get revealed. But yeah, this is where you can see it right now. I'm going to boost over back across the map, grab the 2 points on the right side there. And once I see Voidweaver turn around, I'm going to try and poke at him and harass him some more with this light cruiser. Maybe I should have been a little more patient, since this is kind of the same heading as where I engaged before after all. Maybe what I'm trying to say is maybe I should have waited until I'm at a completely different angle. One where Voidweaver would not expect, and it does not potentially wedge me in the corner. Either way, maybe this should have been a tell. Voidweaver's not really coming right at me. But either way, the light cruiser gets the hits in, I get the shots, and I'm going to try and disengage yet again. Watching again where these cruisers are going. And let's see, I boost with my ships, Voidweaver just boosted with his, I'm pretty certain, so the hunt continues, but as you can see, I now have a perfect window to grab the objectives. It kind of contradicts what I've been talking about before, sort of, but we'll see if this actually pays off or not. It seems like it might, but now, with the fighters kind of screening and kind of locking down the 2 points I can proceed, it is looking really awkward. Maybe I there is actually a window to push over on the left, so maybe I could do that. And there's another Wraithbone shift. I'm reluctantly trying not to boost to give away my position, otherwise I would do it right now. And these fighters are perfectly placed to kind of give away where my light cruiser is. So alas, it did buy me a lot of time. Whether it was worth it, whether it pays off, remains to be seen, especially since my torpedoes were fired a little bit too soon. But it does get a little bit of damage in. As a trade-off, maybe not much, definitely not worth it in the long term. At least in comparison. Since I am going to get these points for free, but Voidweaver does have the point advantage currently. And that is mainly due to the points of the light cruiser itself, but with 4 objectives I'm easily going to negate that over time. And we did do 200 points of damage. Not nearly enough to really be worth it though, in all seriousness. But the one thing interestingly that I was not expecting through all of this is now I have the perfect defensive position against a fleet that is arguably better in close range than me, or at least has the better firepower potential. Which again, I may be overestimating their lascans and underestimating my pulsars to a vague extent. You probably would understand. You probably would be able to comment on that better than me, since I'm kind of trying to play in the thick of it after all, and I don't really have the convenience to really gauge how effective my pulsars are, despite the fact I'm giving you this commentary right now. But either way, even though the light cruiser was shot down, I'm rapidly getting rid of this deficit that I have as a result of that. It's just a question, will this match actually go on to the point to where the score might dictate a victor? I honestly couldn't tell you. It's looking like it might with how slow-paced it is going. This is a different take to what I'm used to against Voidweaver. My opponent is maybe learning, or at the very least they're trying to experiment with the Augur Disruptor as well. Kind of what we've seen before. Although, I'm pretty certain Voidweaver did not use that skill for here. I'm just trying to remember what the other skill was. It probably is the usual Disruption Bomb. And sadly, try as I might, I do get revealed. They are at least 3 fighter squadrons, which isn't a big deal, since that means less bombers for me to worry about. And hell, even the bombers are coming in now, and I wasn't even paying attention to that until just as soon as they get revealed. But I have Brace for Impact back up. I'm going to try and kill these off, and once I realize these bombs are coming in, I'm going to dive bomb them. Maybe I shouldn't have dive bombed with the cruisers that they're actually trying to bomb, but with the fighters distracting, at least at the moment, I do have my point defense freely shooting at them. And hell, Voidweaver panics, I believe, and just recalls all of them. Which helps from avoiding that potential damage. Sure, most of their bombers were shot down, but that still could have been a little bit of damage. And I still killed off a fighter squadron as a bonus. I'm gonna lose in that game of attrition with only a single carrier ship, but still, I feel like I accomplished something there. And now I have a good healthy lead, and with 3 objectives. Much like the Space Marine matches of earlier today, or earlier this episode, and last episode, this is probably as comfortable as I could possibly get, and a gas cloud to at least conveniently conceal myself, if it feels like being visible is too much of a burden. It's hard to really say, since only their flagship has the extended range, so you think I should be okay. I should be. It's just that little bit of tenseness, and I do feel the intimidation, just because of what I said already. The lascans feel more impactful, but at the same time, if I can engage at max range, the damage they do to me should be negligible, since the hull field will still reduce their accuracy some. And Voidweaver, if for some reason, is content to stay in Brace for Impact, as opposed to increasing their accuracy, let alone the 270-degree arc they could get with the lascans too. So, with that all said and done, I think the lascans of Voidweaver would only have a 35% chance to actually hit me with the hull field. Which, upon that realization, my pulsars are probably better, but only at max range. I feel like that changes drastically when we get to this close-range slugfest, as we've always been having so far in our previous engagements with Voidweaver. But with this slow and cautious route, it is possible I could get away with this some. It's just a question of if I can get those pulsar shots in, ideally on that one cruiser, which is kind of what this movement is. I'm trying to position myself in a way maybe I can hit the cruiser and not the phoenixes. That's what, yeah, while at the same time keeping a nice formation so that way all the ships can possibly fire at the same time. And with the Brace for Impact currently, I am okay with, just shooting down these fighters. The point defense in this one squadron should be able to take them out. So we're going to have ourselves a little bit of an awkward trade going on here. I'm shooting at their one Phoenix, their Phoenix is shooting at my cruiser, but at the end of the day I get 2 fighter squadron kills. A very minor victory, but again, if this is how it's going to play out, it could pay off in the long run. I just wish I could tell you how many fighter squadrons I killed up to this point though, since I have not been keeping track. And we're going to do this dance again. I've kind of relegated that this is going to play out how it is, and instead I'm going to try and keep Voidweaver from grabbing this objective. And it is intimidating him. Vaguely, but it is working out. And hell, I even changed the flagship to have the lock-on stance, so that way at least has the best possible chance to either get critical hits or at least do damage, while everything else has the brace for impact. And hell, since Voidweaver's not launching any bombers or anything threatening, I basically just kill another 2 fighter squadrons for free here. It's starting to add up for me. If only slightly, it is starting to add up. And with this additional attempt on the objective, Disruption Bomb's self-explanatory. Just forces them to back off a little bit. Even though that may not have been necessary, this is where I really need to criticize if the Disruption Bomb's doing what I want, or if I honestly should wait. But now, we're about to get in the thick of it. No more messing around, no more fooling around. I switched to the lock-on stance and maximize the damage best I can on this one cruiser. Now, here's the question. Who's gonna play chicken first, even though I do a terrible job and hit myself with some torpedoes? And interestingly enough, Voidweaver turns chicken. I'm not entirely sure why, but now I have a perfect opportunity to hit this cruiser. Sadly, my pulsars were burnt a little bit due to that rate bone shift. But I get what I want there. The rate bone shift is burnt, and I think I'm going to use a Maelstrom in a moment here once I get clear. And actually all the holofields are gone, so I don't need to tell you how nice, how convenient this is for me, with how I talked about before in my first loss. It's still a ridiculous ram fest, that much is certain. But now my pulsars, if I can get all 3 shots, are going to do a ridiculous amount of damage here. Easier said than done though, just due to how close we are to everyone. Even the Slay's turn can make me lose my arc of fire. And even though I lost the light cruiser so early on, for very little arguably, this is a victory. Thanks to the mutiny, and just barely won. Just barely still. And I'm trying to figure out, did I even hit with any of the torpedoes? Outside the ones that hit my Phoenix. I think I didn't, if I were to be honest.